Now, this is a really challenging question, and I want to give a little bit of background, if I may, in terms of the activities that I've been involved in. So I was involved in a large-scale project with the Chartered Management Institute and British Academy of Management, looking at FTSE 100 companies and the progression of people of colour in the management pipeline. And it was a pretty depressing read when we got to the end of it. The actual report is published and available on the Chartered Management Institute website. It's called Delivering Diversity. What we actually found was that companies fell into three categories. They are actually leading from the top, or they were kind of busy but not very effective, or not doing much at all. Most people fell into the not much at all, not doing much at all category. Another piece of work that I did was a floor to board review. And that was important because it was looking at systems, human resource information systems, the HR practices in the professional services, but importantly, the lived experience from those who are working in more modest jobs, such as cleaners and front desk workers, through to the senior leadership team. And it was damning. There was no compliance with the Equalities Act of 2010 at all. Now, to be fair to that organization, they underwent a complete change. Senior leadership team was completely overhauled. They overhauled their HR practices and so on. But what's interesting is that it took a fairly major event, if you like, a seismic event, to actually create the change. And I think the Black Lives Matter movement was a seismic event. So I would say up to 2019, I'd had the odd invitation to join boards, to actually speak, etc. But last year went mad. Everybody wanted to know what I thought about the Black experience in work organizations. So the Times Higher, the Guardian, Vogue of all people, I have no interest in fashion fundamentally, wanted to know what I thought. So there was something that changed, and I think the thing that changed was an awareness of what had not been done. And I think that was a really important moment. So when you get organizations like Lloyd's of London actually on their website, making clear that they have historical links to the slave trade, and that they were going to move forward by listening to their staff, by introducing changes, which would start in their C-suite, but would involve input from people at all levels of the organization. That is pretty root and branch change. So I think there is something that did change, but how do you sustain the change? Well, I think the change that came about with the Black Lives Matter protests were that people wanted to see not just the rhetoric of "we feel your pain." So the fashion industry, a lot of people were criticized for saying they stood full square behind Black Lives Matter, but their leadership team were all white. Their organizations were largely white. So there's integrity and purpose, and in a way which is tangible, is really what matters. People want to see that the decisions that are being made in the leadership team are based on evidence. There are really good examples of that have been done at Virgin Money and at Ernst & Young, for example. And so you really need to crunch the numbers. So your evidence base needs to be strong in order to make these decisions, but your understanding of the lived experience also has to be strong. And a number of organizations have gone towards reverse mentoring in order to get that better feel for what it is to be in that pipeline, but not progressing. So I think there's been a fundamental shift. People are now looking for integrity, credibility, and clear purpose on the part of organizations, but they're also looking for accountability. So they're not simply interested in virtue signaling and rhetoric. They're looking for hard evidence of change, and they're looking for inconsistencies in what people do. So I think there has been a shift in mindset not just within organizations, but in the society as a whole. And we've seen far more calling out of poor practice than I think we would have before the Black Lives Matter protests. So things have changed, and I think we should be encouraging dissent, not what was normally done in organizations when people said that there were acts which were racist, which was to close them down. So I think there is momentum, and the momentum has to be changed by being willing to listen to bad news and doing the good things that are necessary for good leadership and good strategic change. And we're seeing more of that. And that, I think, is what needs to be maintained and sustained.